Hi there. PTSD is a nasty illness. It's something that you have no way of knowing whether you're going to get it. Anyone can end up with PTSD or complex PTSD at any point in their life. It doesn't have to be immediately after a trauma. You don't have to be a veteran. You don't have to have seen something overtly traumatic to develop PTSD. And there's a lot of misconceptions. I've done videos on this before, but the idea that once you get therapy, it's over. PTSD is a lifelong thing. It is permanent once you develop it. You can go into a remission where you don't suffer the effects of it very often. But it takes a long time and work, and it's not easy. The only way out of a severe situation is through, and that is just awful. And it can take years to get to that point. And I want to tell you this because of what's happening with Trump. With these court cases and everything else, yesterday he was found liable by a judge for fraud. His businesses are going to go into receivership. He's had all of his business licenses or certificates revoked. And we are back to Donald Trump ranting and raving about all of these things. Now, I will do a video on his descent into disorganized chaos and cognitive decline, because I think there is a demonstrable cognitive decline there. The problem is his rhetoric speaks to certain people, and we've seen this with January 6th. As someone outside of the situation, I saw that unfold live on TV and sat there saying, this is his fault. Cassidy Hutchinson has come out with her book, Enough, and I will do a video on her. I've spoken briefly about her before. And there are new revelations, or new to the viewers, new to the public revelation. She said all of this to Congress, and she's cooperating with whoever has asked her to sit for a deposition. From her book, Trump was chanting along, hang Mike Pence. It's not normal behavior for anyone. But all of these things add up to a knowledge of what his words do. With the fact that he has now been found liable, and the court case is only about damages now, unless his emergency appeal does something, which is highly unlikely. This is only going to get worse in terms of rhetoric. Now, we have seen Trump supporters, and I'm not talking about Republicans, I am talking about MAGA and ultra MAGA people. For them, it's a way of life. And if Trump says that Mike Pence is a traitor, that is a clear signal to his supporters to go and do something about that. And he's been making these kind of coded statements out into the wild on Truth Social and in his rallies and interviews and everything else about judges, prosecutors, witnesses. And that is sending a clear signal to his MAGA and ultra MAGA supporters that these people should face some kind of wrath, which is just awful. No one thought we'd see a world leader, former or not, doing this. It is absolutely abhorrent. More so for this man here. Actually, let's make him bigger. Now, this is the thumbnail from this video, and this is Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen has, he was Trump's lawyer. 4 years ago, he testified in front of Congress about Trump's dealings. There were a couple of key things he said in that testimony that obviously got him in trouble with legally and with Trump. Now, he was told to lie to Congress about how many times they met over a foreign deal. I can't remember the country now, it's slipped my mind. He said it was 3 when it was actually 10. That was lying to Congress at the direction of and for the benefit of Donald Trump. Now, it's a stupid lie, but that became a felony charge. He was charged, it went to trial, and he was sentenced. Now, he was also wrapped up in a tax evasion issue, which it was added on, but there's no proof that he evaded tax. It's really weird. He ended up in Otisville. So that was around 4 years ago, 3-4 years ago. He was released to house arrest during COVID, because COVID was just sweeping through prisons, and it was a dangerous thing. So non-violent criminals were released to house arrest. While he was at home, he started writing his first book, Disloyal, and he was interviewed by news media because it was news. He was then threatened by the then DOJ that he had to sign and waive his First Amendment rights. So not to do news media, not to write his book, otherwise he would go back to prison. He refused to waive those rights and to stop speaking. So he was remanded back into prison and put into solitary confinement for 51 days while he fought that through the courts. The judge obviously went, nope, this is a violation of his civil rights, and released him back to home confinement. When Trump says a DOJ is weaponized, this is what he was doing. Michael Cohen is still fighting the DOJ. He's got FOIA requests, Freedom of Information Act requests in for all of the paperwork to do with his trial and the charges and the waiving of rights and everything else. And he has been waiting for those pages. A judge, it went to court and the judge said, no, you have to release these pages. And what he's getting is, you know, things have been made confidential or top secret or whatever else, and he's received nothing. So this guy has been through a lot for someone who really just wanted to put the record straight, wanted to do the right thing. And in the process, the DOJ and other people have threatened his family. The reason he pled guilty, he says, is because if he didn't, he was offered the deal on a Friday, and he was told if he didn't accept it by the Monday, they would charge his wife and include her in the tax evasion and other things. Michael Cohen is a family man, and so he accepted the guilty plea to protect his wife. This is a man who's been through a lot. Solitary confinement is no fun. It is cruel and unusual punishment, to say the least. We know psychologically that solitary confinement doesn't work unless the prisoner is incredibly violent and is a danger to themselves or other people. Solitary confinement should never be used. There are plenty of studies on this. Do a bit of Googling. It changes the psyche. You have no idea if it's day or night. You have no company. We are community animals. We are social creatures. So to confine someone to a point where the only communication they have is when a guard pushes food through the slot for 24 hours is bad enough, but 51 days really does some damage. Now, Michael Cohen, honestly, is an amazing guy. Felon or not, and I've known felons. I've spent time with people who did some pretty awful things. That was as a kid. That's a story for another time. And as an adult, I've known murderers. I've known people convicted of tax evasion and fraud. That doesn't make them the world's most terrible people, especially once they have served their time and have gone back out into the community and not done anything else. There is no risk of them reoffending. Michael Cohen is one of those people. Now, as you can see on this thumbnail, both of these images are from MSNBC, and I thought it was important to use images that are consistent in terms of their quality and everything else. He does a lot of interviews with MSNBC. Now, on the left is a photograph of him, or it's a still shot of him in June this year, 3 months ago. He looks tired. And he says himself, he doesn't sleep. People with PTSD, myself included, we don't get a lot of sleep. It's not good quality sleep either. Michael Cohen looks tired, but he has a defiant look on his face. He looks like he is ready to go and fight for justice. On the right-hand side, this was him yesterday. Now, you look at his face here, he has just a very downcast look. If I can, I'm hoping you can see my pointer, but you can see the mouth is drawn down. Yes, he looks tired. His eyes are slightly puffier, slightly more closed in this shot. Now, that could be the angle it's taken at and everything else. There is a, there's a bit of wiggle room on what I'm saying, but his hair is longer. And there's a slope to his shoulders here, that he's leaning slightly. He looks like body tired, not just like here, sleep deprived. This is a man that feels beaten down. Now, this interview was really interesting because he says in it yesterday that he doesn't know if he wants to testify now or not in the New York AG case or any case because of the threats. And this comes back to Trump's rhetoric. Now, yesterday, when Trump was found liable for fraud, him and his sons, and everything was ordered to be liquidated and put in receivership, Trump instantly started attacking the judge and the witnesses and all sorts of other stuff, signaling to his hardcore followers what he wants them to do. Now, Michael Cohen has been very open on the Midas Touch Network and in his podcast, Mea Culpa, which you can find over there, as well as Political Beatdown, which he does with Ben Mycelis, that he does receive threats. Everyone at the Midas Touch Network does, from these hardcore, ultra MAGA cultists. There's no other way to phrase it. Because they are just following Donald Trump. It's not about politics. It's not about justice or right and wrong. Donald Trump says someone is after him, and his cult followers believe him. And Michael Cohen has received these threats for 4 years or longer. They got hold of his home telephone number. They got hold of his address. They doxed him in as many places as they could to terrorize him into not testifying, not complying with subpoenas and other things, not to keep speaking, not to keep writing books, not to keep doing interviews or his work on the Midas Touch. He honestly gets this day in, day out. And whenever he does interviews, whenever Trump loses a case, that ramps up. And he doesn't deserve it. This is a man going out and telling the truth, telling what he knows to be fact. And with all of the cases, all of the allegations, but also all of the things that Trump has now been found liable for in a civil case. E. Jean Carroll, he's a sexual abuser and he defamed her. What he said about her was not true, as found by a court of law, a jury of his peers. This wasn't Biden, this wasn't Cohen, this wasn't anyone else. This was a jury of his peers that found him guilty, or liable rather, of sexual abuse, which in New York is basically the same as rape. When Trump tried to appeal that judgment, the judge wrote a very scathing reply because Trump wanted to sue E. Jean Carroll for defamation because she went on TV the following night and said, no, he raped me, which is an answer to the question she was posed. Trump then, he wanted to sue her for defamation, and the judge threw it out. No, you know, you were found liable for sexual abuse in New York. If they don't know what was used to penetrate the victim, then it has to be sexual abuse. Just because they can't work out whether it was your finger or your penis doesn't matter. In every definition of the word rape, you raped her. But his followers will not accept that. The DOJ is weaponized when it's against Trump and not when it is against other people like Michael Cohen. You cannot have it both ways. And this poor guy is going through hell. He is obviously really struggling because of these threats. He doesn't know if someone walking up to him is going to thank him or abuse him verbally or worse. He has no idea. He receives these death threats or threats of violating his children or whatever else regularly. And this is down to Trump's rhetoric. This is a man who has PTSD, and he is constantly living in a nightmare. This is complex PTSD because it is a constant, it is a repeated trauma. Because every time he meets someone, he has no idea. Because every time he picks up the phone, he has no idea what is on the other end. So it is a constant or repeated trauma, which is what makes it complex. There are many layers to it. There are many players involved. Trump is the catalyst. And all of these other people, media, commentators, right-wing nuts, ultra MAGA supporters, all of these people are constant triggers for him. He is in a state of high alert. High arousal is what they call it, but that has other connotations. But really what that means is, for most people, their anxiety level is down here. For people who have anxiety and other things, their base level may be here. Michael Cohen is living with anxiety up here all of the time. It affects every aspect of your life. As someone with complex PTSD, I can talk about this with some kind of authority. And I'm not saying I know exactly what Michael Cohen is going through. I don't. Every person is different. Every situation is different. Every trigger is different. Every trauma is different. Never compare yourself to other people. What I can say as someone with complex PTSD is this is a living nightmare. I've lived in a similar living nightmare where everything is a trigger. I have lived with anxiety now for 20 plus years that an abuser is going to just turn up at my door, find out where I live, turn up at my door and confront me or try and get through the door, attack me in some way. And that's, you know, for me, that's daft because some of these people are long gone. You know, they're somewhere else in the country. They don't know where I live and I am pretty safe. I've got a big dog. But that terror, that worry, that anxiety is always there. For Michael Cohen, it is a reality that something like that could happen. It is a reality that he is living with. And he cannot start healing and start his work towards recovery and respite until those threats are gone. And until all of these court cases are over, until Trump is not allowed to speak and rile up his base, those aren't going to be gone. My heart goes out to him and his family. It really, really does, because this is a scary, scary position to be in. I can only imagine the trauma that he's going through. So what I wanted to do was update you, because I've spoken about Michael Cohen before and his work and his search for justice. But really, I saw this interview and I just wanted to give him a big hug. You know, as a fellow cptsd survivor and warrior, I want to reach out to people like him, maybe like some of you. That's my job as a mental health mentor, as someone who is here on YouTube and has a platform. I want to be able to say, look, I see you. I see you, Michael Cohen. I see you, whoever you are, going through this. I am you. And if you can get through, you can get out. It's a lifelong struggle. And I'm not going to say it's not. There is no cure, but there are ways to find your way through and to cope and to lessen the symptoms. Michael Cohen at the moment doesn't have that option. I really hope he's going to therapy, that he has someone to talk to. He has a great support network with family, friends, co-workers, that kind of thing. But sometimes you need a professional, right? You know, there are some things that you really need therapy for. And I am a big advocate of that, despite what I do here and it, you know, in my business one-to-one. What I do is alongside therapy. It's not a replacement for therapy. It is an aid. It is compassion and no judgment. Let's get you back on track with your goals. Let's supplement. Let's help with the mental health stuff. But I really hope that Michael Cohen has therapy and people like me in his life who can help him through each day or get to each goal. I really hope that he can testify. I think that is, you know, for me, that would be part of finding that justice and bringing myself some closure. Is something you give yourself. Closure doesn't happen magically, but maybe that will help close off that part of his involvement. He's done everything he can. It's now in someone else's hands. it's now in the jury's hands, or it's now in the judge's hands. Michael Cohen is never going to see this. Why would he? But, you know, I want to say to Michael Cohen, and really I'm talking to everyone in similar situations with PTSD, cptsd, mental health issues, please make sure you are looking after yourself. Please make sure you have someone to talk to, someone like me in your life that can encourage you and support you in getting into therapy and getting the help you need and help you in day-to-day life. You deserve it. You are worthy of it. It doesn't matter what anyone else has ever told you or what that inner critic in your mind is doing. You deserve it. You are worthy. You are powerful. You are needed. You are loved and you are loving, and you can get through this with a bit of support, and there is no shame in asking for support. Michael Cohen, if by any weird coincidence you see this, I do hope you're doing okay. I do want to reach out, and as one human being to another, I see you. I am here if you ever want to talk, or you want to get in touch. My email is craftalytical@gmail.com. You can also find my podcast here on YouTube or on pretty much any listening service. Do download that or listen to it. There's some handy stuff in there, some interesting stuff, I think. Yesterday, I released a video about cults. Interesting stuff, I feel. If you want more from me, I'm going to put some bubbles up on either side. YouTube is going to suggest the next video that is appropriate for you. And also you can subscribe. That would be nice. If you've got value from this, hit like, let me know, add your comments below. Please be respectful, and I will speak to you in the next video. Thank you.